Shalom, Israelite family, Shalom. So, welcome to another episode of Israel in Asia. Israel in Asia. Today, we're going to actually focus on the Library of Political Secrets of the Fifth Columnist. If you haven't found those documents or found those files, definitely go look it up. You want to look at them. You do have to eat the meat and spit out the bones. Of course, Esau, Amalek has definitely contaminated several of those documents with photos of the converts versus the real Israelites, but they do have pearls in there that will highlight the real Israelites and their migration. Everyone needs to know, in order to have a lie, you have to have a sprinkle of truth in there, or you will totally reject it. Esau actually understands that, so that's why he did it such a way where he keeps the history, but he just sprinkles it with a little bit of imagery, he sprinkles it with a little bit of diversion, and then ultimately you keep the same story, so it's a true story. It's just that you sprinkle a few false images, a few false narratives, and then you got your same story that seems true because it is true, but then yet there's a lie. That's why sometimes it's hard for people to accept Jesus Christ as being black, the Israelites being black, because we have gotten used to the imagery, which is a lot stronger. But if you read the content and realize that it is true that those things happen, but you got to separate from when it did happen and the truth to the falsehoods that's been portrayed. So let's go forth. Now, this has been on several of my presentations. This is just a small snippet of what I take so that way you can see the truth mixed with the lie. I've had this in several videos, and the reason why I slow this is because it's in this few sentences you will see that there's trickery in the contents. So if you're a good reader and you have comprehension, you will understand that they're telling the truth on themselves. They're telling the truth on themselves. But first, before you understand this, never heard of the Fifth Columnist. I never heard of it until about maybe a year ago. However, what is a fifth columnist? If you Google it, just Google it, fifth column. It is any group of people who undermines the larger group from within. What larger group? From all the other nations. All the other nations were the larger groups, right? Because don't forget, we were small. God did not select Israel because we were large, right? You remember that? So we were in among other groups, right? Within the groups, usually in favor of an enemy group or nation. The activity of the fifth column can be overt or clandestine, means undercover. Forces gathered in secret can mobilize openly to assist an external attack, meaning they were keeping the commandments underground. They weren't being openly obvious about their faith in their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, or Yahshua, however you want to say it, Yahuwah. They did not believe. They did not want to openly express that because they knew persecution would come. So they were secretly, overtly do this, keeping the commandments and ruling as God has told them to rule. And they sustained that lifestyle for a while. Now, if you go to Esther 12:4, it says, declaring to us that in all nations throughout the world there was scattered a certain malicious people that had laws contrary to all nations. And it's because they had those laws contrary to nations, they try to keep it under the rug and continuously despise the commandments of the kings, the commandments of other nations, as you read in the definition. So, as the uniting of our kingdom of the nations, honorable intended by us, cannot go forward. Meaning we can't go forward as long as these Israelites and other nations are still keeping their laws, are still hiding behind cover and empowering themselves, because the laws, as you read in Judith, was our superpower. The laws kept us protected and kept us on top. It made us the head, not the tail. You remember in Deuteronomies. So let's read the first sentence from one of the Japanese books, and we're gonna go through these books too. In Japan, one of the sentences I pulled, I forgot what page I pulled this from in that book, but if you go pull it, you'll find it. If these secret Jews are rooted out and stripped of their power, and Japan and China followed a policy in favor of their race and nation, so basically told you that these Jews had a certain race and nation, and reject the pressure from Israel and American Jews. Okay, that's a different Jew. So hold on, how do you have a secret Jew and then you have an American Jew? Two different Jews. Do you see it? It's right there in your face. One Jew is a secret Jew, the other Jew somehow is an American Jew. And then the whole of Asia could eventually follow their examples and free themselves from our countries and other countries from Jewish domination. So who was trying to dominate? It was the American Jews trying to dominate the secret Jews, and which were the ethnic racial Jews of old times, the ancient Jews they would call it. And if you go to John 11:48, it says, if we let them thus alone, all man will believe on them. That's exactly what they're saying. They're like, look, if we got to let these guys keep on the ground, people are going to know that these are the chosen people, and if they keep following them, they're not going to follow us, even though we converted to Judaism, and we want to have the same power, so we have to strip them of their power so that they will follow us as the real Jews, which goes down to Revelations, those that say they are Jews but are not. Now, here's another paragraph or sentence that was taken out of the Chinese Fifth Columnist. Later, mixed marriages have increased of the numbers of fifth columnist Israelites, whose racial appearance, now you're talking about race again, here we go about race again. Oh, but it's not about race. It's not about race. So why the heck are they talking about race? Whose racial appearance is Chinese, Moab, but who in secret are members of the nation of Israel, increasing in the way of clandestine Israel, fifth columnists, meaning that they look like Moab, but they were Israel. You get that? They look like Moab, but they were Israel. Although we believe that the Chinese population resulted with these mixed marriages may still be small, it would be important investigations to calculate the number of clandestine Jews in China. In number of clandestine Jews in China. Now we have scripture saying that Israel would dwell with who? Moab. So they would dwell with Moab. And this scripture, in this sentence right here is talking about they were mixed in marrying the other nations, and their children were coming out looking more like Moab, but yet they were still Israel. Do you see it? Got it? All right, let's go to the next one. India. The first European Jews arrived in Portuguese colonies mostly as crypto Jews. So these are European Jews. Okay, cool. So are these real Israel or are they conversos? Let's figure it out. Let's see. That is to say, as clandestine Jews. So they was undercover, right? Pretending Christianity. So they was pretending like a Christian, but they really was practicing Judaism. Okay, let's keep going. The abundance of the clandestine Portuguese Jews, now this one says clandestine Portuguese Jews, seem to have been one of the reasons for establishing the Inquisition of gold. Whoa, wait a second. So you had these European Jews that came in, arrived in the Portuguese colonies, mostly as crypto, but the abundance of the Portuguese Jews seem to have been one of the reasons of establishing the Inquisition. So you're trying to tell me the European Jews came in, saw an abundance of Portuguese Jews, and decided to establish an Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition, the Inquisition across the world was to persecute who? The Israelites and the Jews. So you're telling me the European Jews, obviously now you know those are converted Jews, came to extort and do an Inquisition to get out the Portuguese Jews, which were the ethnic Jews, the racial ethnic Jews or Israelites that were in that location in gold. This is in India. Now between 1561 and 1623, an Inquisition condemned 3,800 persons, many for secretly apprehending to Judaism. So you're trying to tell me that now you had Jews come in and persecuting other Jews for keeping the laws. You see how contradicting that is? If you're keeping the commandments, you can read it and it's clear as mud if you see this stuff. But if you're not keeping the commandments, I know it's confusing. Go ahead and eat some rocks or something. I don't know. Luke 20:20. And they watched him and sent forward spies, which should forge themselves just men, that they might take hold of his words, that so they might deliver him unto the power and authority of the government. That is exactly what they did. The European Jews came in, They found out there was Portuguese Jews already there. They established the Inquisition. They took them. They turned them over to the government and sold them, or persecuted them and killed them and burned them, as you knew throughout all the Inquisition, which is the real Holocaust. There you go. All right, so let's go into a little bit more meat in these books because we're gonna cover the mornings. Then we're gonna go to Japan first. Let's do Japan. All right. So here's your library of political secrets. The Jewish fifth columnist of Japan. Now here's some of the pages right here. Right now we had in Japan they had these. They was claimed from the tribe of Manasseh. A lot of them were claimed to be from the tribe of Manasseh. Now, there was Jewish leaders, these were probably conversos, that went to investigate. Because why were they investigating? Because they were looking for them. They was making sure they exterminated them, or if they were hiding, because don't forget, this is called fifth columns, they were making sure they weren't going to uprise within their secret places and take over the government, so they had to make sure they extort them and pour them out as much as possible. So some explorers find traces of the impact of the Judaism and prohibited conversations also in the Empire of Japan. They pointed to two villages which bear the name Goshen and Manasseh. There is a legend that during the 3rd century, the party of foreign silk traders, just doing the Silk Road, appeared in the empire. And by the year 471, a number of 18,000 were there. A temple in front of which figures the lions and a unicorn called the Buddha dogs keeping watch is claimed to have been a synagogue as known as the 10 Tents of David, which was erected by them on the spot where their first settled. They were highly respected. They were going back to that. They were respected and were known as the Chada, or the Beloved. The Chada, or the Beloved. On the site belonging to one of the Chada families, there is a well some 15,000 years ago old, upon the cribbling of which are engraved the letters Israel. The letters Israel. Now realize over here it says the reason is that because the first number of racial Jews, those actually of Jewish blood in Japan, including the crossbreeding Jewish imperials, has been forced to recruit precedents of the gate, which it is no longer does anymore in most countries. Now it says, and to increase its fifth columns in the land of the rising sun, this is in the scripture too, the land of the rising sun, a land Judaism is determined at all costs to conquer and control. So they're basically saying that these Israelites that were going across the world, that were scattering around the world from persecution, they were coming, but their intent was to dominate. Their intent was to dominate, because God said, you were, even though they fell off, they knew, a lot of people still knew they were children of Israel, and a lot of people knew that they had a one and true God. A lot of people remember them coming out of Egypt, and a lot of people feared them, which was in Judah, when they said, hey, watch out for these people, because if they keep the commandments, they will, God will be with them. So a lot of people feared the Israelites in these countries. And where were they at? In Japan. In Japan. So this is before any slave trade. This is before any slave trade. Okay? Okay, everybody, you got that? You got that. Make sure you comprehend it. Somebody might have tinfoil on their head. Take it off, please. Take your helmet off. Understand, this is before the slave trade. And guess what? There was a slave trade in Japan. Okay? Go watch my other videos. It's too easy. Thank you. Let's go. So here we go. There's a map. Now, Jamutuno, 1660 BC, and the Chada Jews. Many of them, 18. There go your number right there. 18,670 Jews married native females. That came from another book, saying the exact same numbers from this book. So was they in Japan? I think they were. I think they were. I think there were. Now, this map is a glorious map. Yes, I constructed this. This map is like, you will not find this map in a textbook, so you might as well take a screenshot because this is not from a textbook. This is from a museum. However, you show the migration. You see where they came. So some of these people were Sakas. Some of these people were Scythians. Some of these people were from the tribe of Gad. Some of these people were from the tribe of Manasseh that migrated either after the Media's them invading or getting out of Media or out of Nineveh. Some people left out of Nineveh and went this route, and they came over to this side of the world. So be mindful. Israel was in Asia well before any slave trade. Well before any slave trade. Let's keep going. Now, we have another book. Look at this. This is a whole volume over here. And they got more, by the way. I ain't covering them all. Another political secrets of Chinese communists and Chinese Jews. Wow, look at this. So, they kept their faith with their characteristics, tendencies, distinguishing the Hebrew race. They even now do not marry but women of the same religion. So basically, like, you got to be keeping the commandments before you marry you. During the war among the Tartars and the Chinese people, a part of them moved to Changing provinces, neighboring that which our city is located, and became established in King Tong, a city and I intended to visit. In the other part of Ernuri, in the Phu province, they are immigrants also in Peking and throughout China. Now, here's people that don't know, because a lot of people are not historians on here, and neither am I. However, if you Google Peking, Peking is Beijing. Peking is Beijing. The old name of Beijing was called Peking. Peking. All right. So let's go read the other bold text. Only one had a real Jewish type. Oh, only one had a real Jewish type, but except for the religion and circumcision, they are completely converted into Chinese by their language. So they basically had the Jewish type, but they were converted by the culture. Dressing, customs, and habits, they also have Chinese names. It is said that Jews came to China from the northwest part of India by about the 3rd century after Christ. We saw some now on the map. They first remained secretly in Nanghai, Hangzhou, and Peking, which is Beijing, and later became established in Kaifu. They later became established in Kaifeng, and that's where they stayed. Now, if you go to the bottom, it says some incidental observation of Marco Polo trip showed that Jews were significant enough to be able to exert political influence in China and Tartarian, meaning that's why they called them the fifth columnists. They were there looking like they were Moab, but they were there conquering, ruling, and establishing the society because they were the most civilized. And he noticed that they were establishing, these were Israelites. These were not Moabites. But now let's go back to that Peking. Now, you know Peking is Beijing. Kaifeng, where's Kaifeng? If you look here over the right side, it got a circle. It's kind of blurry, but it says Kaifeng. Kaifeng was not too far from Beijing. Now, it's another one of my other slides is showing you that a lot of people from Kaifeng, where did they go? To the Philippines. Kaifeng people went to the Philippines. And also, what was another name for the area of Kaifeng? Kaifeng was also called Shunem in Isaiah 49. Look it up. Go get a map. Go look at the other presentation. It's already there. Already made the videos. I'm just covering down on some details just on these books. That's all I'm doing. So a lot of stuff is very, very repetitive, but very, very funny because the fact that people even dare would say that these people ain't over here You got to be clueless or brain dead, or your pride is to the moon. To the moon. Yes, to the moon. All right. So we even have content showing that a lot of these people were Gadites, Manasseh, Reubenites. These tribes over here. So you have tribes everywhere. That's all I can say. You ain't had no tribes on the Western Hemisphere. You had tribes on the Eastern Hemisphere. And this, by the way, going back to what I was saying earlier, this was prior to any slave trade. If you go to Ezekiel, there's a verse in Ezekiel that talks about them overcoming. The mountain of Israel will overcome and overtake these guys. Ezekiel 39, 1 through 6. It says that the mountain of Israel will overtake the gold, will overtake I'm trying to think of the other Japhite seeds. But they said, they would overtake these areas and overtake these locations, and the Ravens birds, which was, my people are a speckled bird. So if you look at the Ravens birds, he's talking about the same people. He's talking about Israel, northern tribe of Israel, was taking over these areas for a while. Was it permanent? Absolutely not, because this map shows you that Genghis Khan, as they was either being clandestine, staying in one area, hiding out, they would eventually get taken over by Genghis Khan. And then they had to escape again, or they would evade again and come into a new territory and then take over there for a little while. So they would migrate, take over, rule. People respect them because they knew who they were, but then eventually those people would have hatred towards them and turn on them and then conquer them because they didn't keep the laws. They still was in sin. They still was in paganism. A lot of these people that were in Israel, a lot of these denominations over in Asia was created still by Israelites. By Israelites. They were created by them. But was it true Israelite faith? No, it wasn't. But they was able to establish religion off the paganism that they learned and brought it with them into Japan. These people migrated into these areas. Let's keep going. Now we're gonna go back a little bit we can go back to the west a little bit. We're gonna go back to India. So let's go back to India. Now a lot of these eyes went to India first. A lot of them migrated to India and then eventually got into Southeast or Southern Asia or East Asia, so that way they can escape and evade whatever persecution was coming from Amalek, Moab, coming from Esau, and so forth, because the curse was chasing them down. Bottom line, the curse was coming after them and they were trying to avoid them. That's what's happening. Not just in Africa, but also in Asia. Also in Asia, all right? Goodness gracious. All right. So let's see right here. It says, so white Jews rejected any connections with their Negro brethren. Now, yes, Esau and Jacob were brothers. So they were rejecting the other Jews, right? Because now they were more superior somehow. Going further, quotes are in interest pieces of information containing white Jews regarding the Negroes as inferior and impure cattle or castes or inferior castes. So basically, this is when colorism started being introduced to the world. Colorism was saying, oh, no, we're the better Jews. And guess what? The other nations was eating it up. Why? Because the other nations believed that these Edomite or Amalek Jews were the real Jews because they practiced the faith. And it was like, well, those are not the pure caste. And by the way, why was this able to be sold so well over here? Because we were intermingled in the first place. We already looked like the other nations. So it was easy for them to say, yeah, we Israel too. But wait a second, you're not dark like these guys are. All right. So it says have news in general that other Jews are more sympathetic for the Ben Israel than for their Negro co-religionaries because they have because they are concerned by their poverty and frequently having great trade business within them. Negro Jews of Cogin rejoice when they are recognized as brethren in the faith, and they are very hospitable. Interesting. But you will find it here that you got the, like I say, you got the meats and eat them and spit out the bones, but they obviously tells on themselves. They obviously tell that no, 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 we're the Jews. So they wrote the book in their exploitation of the real Jews as they were going to these other countries looking for the what? The fifth column Jews, because they were hiding out as they was infiltrating. They were explaining how they were the real Jews and they wanted to cast out the fake Jews or the racial Jews. And this is throughout all the volumes constantly. So good understanding. Make sure you got understanding before you read these, because you will get confused if you don't understand it. I'm just covering a few items because I'm not going to read all these books. I do this YouTube because I know not everybody read, but we got to read these things because you got to make sure you understand your history, especially over you guys over in Asia, because the guys over in the Western Hemisphere, we don't read either. But guess what? We got a lot of cocky brothers. We got a lot of cocky brothers that don't have no problem highlighting. Now you guys on this side, you got to get a little bit more cocky and start lifting yourself up and building yourself up in His word and His truth, learning who the heck you are first, and then start keeping these commandments, because that's your power. That's your superpower. You're going through this persecution, and y'all been through what y'all been through because you left God's laws. And then Esau, Amalek, and Moabites, and all those guys went and say, "Know what? We're gonna swipe you. We're gonna conquer you, and we're gonna make a confederation together, so that they can put you down, sell you, manipulate you." And then guess what? What happened? Then the slave trade started. And of course, guess where the slave trade really started first? Over in the Eastern Hemisphere, over in the Indian slave trade, the Safari, the Sahara, the I think it's called Sahara slave trade. That started well before the Atlantic slave trade, and they had a lot more slaves. There's a video out there that tells you it. Camps are sharing it. Go watch the video. You will hear clearly that slave trade will happen. Well, and the thing is, they said, oh, they traded all these different people and this and that. No, they was trading Israelites. That's all. Here's the books. Why do they make these books? They're talking about the Jewish fifth columns in India and in Japan and in China. If they knew they were there, then that must mean they knew who they were. And they even said in his books, they looked just like them almost, but they knew who they were and they practices in their secret affairs, and they sold them. It's easy. And guess where most of them ended up? Southeast Asia. Go to watch the other videos. All right? Well, you guys have a peace and blessed day. Shalom to all my Israelite family, and talk to you next video. Shalom. Oh, shoot. Look at me. Got another slide. Well, this is just your map of India. You've seen this map on several of my books. I mean, several of my videos. So I don't even need to explain this thing. You know, you got pictures here. You got where all the Israelites camps were, synagogues. It's real simple. Yeah. Take a screenshot. Do what you gotta do with this. But there's your Israelite migration to Asia, in India, in Korea, in Japan, all these different locations. Are they still there today? Maybe a sprinkle, but I know a lot of them went to Southeast Asia. I'll tell you that for sure. All right. All right.